Before you ask the question, no, I have not switched bodies with a 13-year-old teenager in the middle of puberty. Okay, I'll give you the story because I know you're wondering why my voice sounds like this, because it sounds absolutely terrible. And if you've clicked off the video based off me sounding like a croaky 13-year-old, I wouldn't blame you, but you might want to hear this story. So I'm Australian, as you might know. And basically, if you do know anything about Australia, you know there's a lot of kangaroos, probably 52 million, 2 to each person. There's around 26 million people in Australia, 52 million kangaroos. I live on a farm, as every Australian does. There's no city in Australia, there's no houses, it's really just farms and land. So I'm out on the farm, and normally I navigate with kangaroos. It's a pretty daily occurrence. So there was a big dog. There was a big dog kangaroo, and a couple of them actually. I fought one of them off, but you know kangaroos have these really powerful legs? Yeah, well, as I was fighting him off, I was kind of in a wrestling match with him, because that's kind of how I navigate with kangaroos. It's hard to punch him out because, trust me, you don't want to do that. And as I'm trying to take him down, just kicked me right in the throat. So that's pretty much my story as to why my throat sounds like this and my voice sounds like this. Again, if you want to click off the video, I wouldn't blame you. If you want to put on subtitles and listen to music while you're watching this video, I wouldn't blame you because, yeah, it's probably unbearable to listen to my voice, but unfortunately, that's the reality we face every day in Australia. We have to deal with the dangers of living around kangaroos, spiders, crocodiles, wombats, dingoes, all of these things. Yeah, it's a pretty harsh world. Sharks, did I even mention? Basically, what I'm getting to is, if you want to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I ask it every single day because it really does help out the video, not just because I'm desperate. I've now spent 2 minutes of this video talking about kangaroos, and we're talking about the Dallas Mavericks, not about kangaroos, so that's crazy. Why I was high on the Dallas Mavericks heading into this year? I think it was hard not to be high on the prospects of the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, obviously they took the LA Clippers close to the distance. Some people think they would have won that series if it wasn't for an injury to Kristaps Porzingis a couple of games into the series. Luka Doncic rolled his ankle as well and still proceeded to drop 40 on their head and a game winner. One of the best moments in recent playoff memory. It was a great series to watch, and the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, those guys proved that they're a dominant force when on the court together. On the court together, that's a thing we're going to talk about. But when on the court together, they proved, particularly towards the end of the season when Kristaps was firing, Luka was firing all season long. There's just a number of things to like about the Dallas Mavericks. Well, 20 games into the season, it's not exactly been up from there. There's definitely some reasons for that, so before you slate me for saying, you're panicking too much, there's nothing to worry about with the Mavericks, look, I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about why there's not too much to worry about and why there might be some potential room for concern. Regardless of injuries, regardless of missing players, losing 5 games in a row, being 8-12, being 13th in the Western Conference and having the worst record in the league over the last 10 games, there's a little bit of room for concern. So I'm going to talk about that. Now, some of my room for concern actually came from Luka Doncic recently in an interview post-game talking about how he just didn't think this team wanted enough. He was frustrated. He wasn't happy with losing. You can understand. He's obviously been a winner his whole life. He's won championships already. He expects to win. And the team just haven't been up to scratch. Now, again, I was giving them a lot of leeway because they'd missed Josh Richardson for, I think, 10 games, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber. Kristaps Porzingis had been in and out with injuries. There'd been a whole heap of key players missing from their team. But obviously, Luka wasn't a fan of that excuse because he wasn't happy with what they were doing. And you can see why, because they got most of their players back against a Donovan Mitchell-less Jazz. They didn't just lose by a small margin against a Donovan Mitchell-less Jazz. They got blown out consecutively. Now, he was more happy with the effort against the Suns, which again they lost, and it was a closer game than the ones against the Mavs. Whether he was just saying that to kind of uplift the team or he was genuinely happy with the effort, I think they did show more effort against the Suns. They just looked terrible against the Jazz. It was pretty hard to watch, honestly, but effort or not, they've still had their struggles, and over the last 5 games, obviously they've been winless, as I mentioned. They now have the worst defensive rating in the league over those last 5 games, and they've played against the Rockets without Oladipo or Wood, the Nuggets who lost Murray in the third quarter, the Jazz twice without Donovan Mitchell, and the Suns without Devin Booker. Now the Mavericks have been far from healthy, which I want to make very clear. They've got a lot of reasons to have lost games more than you would have expected. They have been struck by injuries and protocol as harshly as any other team in the league, or close to. But at the same time, the teams they were playing against, you would expect, with all of those teams missing at least one of their best players, if not all of them missing their best players, you would expect for them to have won one of those 5 games, to have lost all 5 games, and to be poor defensively in all 5 games. it's a little bit concerning. And I'm going to talk about those concerns because they're allowing quite a lot of three-point shots. Again, some of that can be attributed to Josh Richardson and Dorian Finney-Smith missing games, their two best wing defenders, but still they have been giving up a lot of three balls. Also, they have been absolutely terrible rebounding the ball. I mean, I could give you the stats, but let me just sum it up by saying over the last 5 games, 3 of those 5 games they've come up against DeMarcus Cousins, who was struggling before he played the Mavs, Rudy Gobert, and DeAndre Ayton. In 3 of those 5 games, these 3 individual players have combined for 54 rebounds. That's 18 a game over 3 different games. I know those are some good rebounders, but like, to just be consistently, absolutely dominated on the boards like that? Yikes. Some of that comes down to Kristaps Porzingis. A lot of that comes down to Kristaps Porzingis struggling rebounding the ball, struggling boxing out, getting dominated. We're going to talk about him in a bit more detail because I need to talk about him more as an individual and how that affects the team. And also a little bit of that has to do with the likes of Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, 2 of their best rebounders in the lineup missing games as well. That doesn't excuse 54 rebounds to 3 centers over the course of 3 games. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. But even when I looked at some of the smaller stats, which I don't normally do, when you hear Luka talking about their team doesn't want it enough, they're not diving on loose balls, okay, let's stat check that for you, Luka. Well, he's not wrong, because over the last few games, they've been right at the bottom in loose ball recoveries, both offensively and defensively, and also at the bottom for deflections. Sometimes stats that get overlooked, somewhat important stats, relatively important stats, and also the difference between maybe winning a close game and losing a close game. And it also just shows intensity, which leads into other aspects of the game, like allowing open three-point shots and all of these things, which they've struggled with. These are things that you often associate with effort. Obviously, there's personnel, but when you're towards the bottom in deflections, loose balls, and rebounds, 3 effort things, it doesn't really bode well for this team. But another issue I've had with Dallas, yes, there is a few issues. I'm not by any means getting carried away and saying this team is done or anything of that sort. But in other issues, there's been different issues in every game. I know that's kind of 2 issues in one. Against the Jazz, they got torched, which isn't a crazy thing given the Jazz's 3-point potency. But then against the Suns, well, again, the Suns actually shot pretty well. The Mavericks had a real chance to win the game. Luka was penetrating, finding open looks, in the last 6 3-point shots the Mavericks missed, apart from a Tim Hardaway shot right at the end of the game when the game was already over. But 6 consecutive missed 3-point shots off a lot of good looks off Luka penetration. This kind of comes down to another aspect of their game which they're struggling in. They're the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. They were top 10 last season. Now I'm going to give you a chance to look at this glass half full or glass half empty. They're currently creating a lot of open 3-point opportunities and a decent amount of wide open 3-point shots, which is obvious because Luka is the engine of their offense. But you've got guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, who's down from 37.5% last year. He's a career 33% shooter, so maybe he's not going to get back to 37.5%, and that was a blip. Richardson, I can't see him shooting 28% for the whole year. That is ridiculous. Obviously, Luka's been struggling from 3 as well. He's sub 30, I believe. And then you've got the likes of Kristaps Porzingis, who's at 28.8%, a career 36% shooter. Pretty much their only 2 consistent shooters are Trey Burke and Jalen Brunson, who can't always be on the floor because obviously the defensive issues you have if you've got 2 6-foot guards or even 1 6-foot guard in closing time. We've seen those issues before when they had Seth Curry. That's why they got rid of it. Again, I want to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because when you consider the likes of Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Kristaps, they've missed a lot of games. There's just been inconsistencies. Sometimes it's hard to find that rhythm when you're consistently in and out of the team or you're out of the team for an extended period of time. And you say that Richardson is 0 of 7 since coming back. Finney-Smith is 30% since coming back. Kristaps, before missing last game, he was 4 of 20 over the last 3 games. You see, like, there's a common theme, guys missing games and then struggling to shoot the ball because sometimes it's just a rhythm thing. And clearly these guys aren't in rhythm. Another thing, maybe Maxi Kleber comes back, he provides some spacing, he helps the rebounding aspects. He's a much better shooter than what they currently have. Pairing Kristaps. It's definitely not the end for the Mavericks by any means, and I'm not giving up on them, but ultimately I had high hopes for this team because of Porzingis. I knew what Luka Doncic was going to be. I knew they got solid enough role players. They didn't have any crazy role players. They just had guys that could defend and hopefully shoot the 3-ball, which they're not doing. The whole hope I had for this team was because Kristaps was playing like a top 20 to 25 player in the league before the end of the season. Some people told me he was a top 5. Like, I don't want to call people delusional on my own channel because I appreciate you watching the videos, but he wasn't a top 5 player. He was maybe top 15. Maybe top 15 when he was really, really hitting his straps in the bubble. Maybe top 15. Top 5. No. No. He was fantastic in the second half of the season. He was rebounding the ball. He was getting to the free throw line. He was shooting the 3 ball. He was defending solidly. He was playing the 5. And you had a team that could space the floor. You had a team that looked fantastic offensively. That led to the best offensive rating in NBA history. This was because of Kristaps. And now all of a sudden he looks like a shell of himself. He's giving up points to the likes of Rudy Gobert. He's giving up rebounds. He's not shooting the 3 ball well. We have to give him some time. People are talking about trading him. Is he ever going to be healthy? Is he ever going to be good? Is he ever going to be that second star? Is he ever going to be this, and that? Let's give him some time. He's coming off a serious injury. He took some time last year and it turned around. Let's just hope he can stay healthy for a while, because if he stays healthy, I have no doubts he is still talented, because if you had doubts over him getting back to his best, we just saw it last year. He eventually got back to his best, which some people questioned if he ever would after his slow start to the season last year. He got back to the best he'd ever played, to be honest. He is the biggest part of this team and a big part of them struggling. Rebounding the ball, defensively guarding the perimeter, Kristaps is really struggling in the pick and roll, and then also because of his rebounding and his defensive struggles, you're asked to pair him with the likes of Cauley Stein, who can't guard the perimeter either. So it's just a lot of issues revolving around Kristaps, and I don't want to blame him for everything because there's other players struggling as well. The biggest part of this team getting back to its best is Kristaps getting back to its best, because I think once he gets back to his best, you can probably play Maxi Kleber, which allows them to space the floor better and shoot the 3 ball better. You can play Maxi Kleber, which again allows them to guard the perimeter better, or you can play Dorian Finney-Smith, which allows them to guard the perimeter better and to not be cooked on the perimeter. Kristaps can start rebounding the ball better. A lot of these things come down to Kristaps Porzingis getting back to being a top 20 player in the NBA, which he was. The Dallas Mavericks are by no means a disaster. They're struggling. As I make this video, they're probably going to blow out the Suns today. I don't think they're a disaster. I just think there's some issues. A lot of that comes down to Kristaps Porzingis hopefully getting back to his best. Just stay healthy, please. And guys like Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Porzingis, all of these guys who are struggling shooting the ball better, them starting to hustle a bit more, wanting the game more, and hopefully the Mavericks can get back to where I thought they would be. That's all I have to say. If you put up with my croaky voice for this long, I don't know how you did it.